Quotations from myself, segment 30, quotation number 338. This civilization and the state, as its final product, has originally come into existence and have been developing ever since as a mechanism of reconciliation and, if possible, harmonization of the often contrary interests of town and country. Hence, the success and failure of both civilization and the state are directly connected to their ability to keep the balance between the two, town and country. For as long as this precarious balance is properly maintained, the civilization and the state survive and even occasionally prosper. But when the interests of one side of such an unstable equilibrium prevail, usually that of a city as the center of power, both civilization and the state are doomed to destruction. Number 339. Since it is as natural for a liar to lie as for an honest man to tell the truth, and since each is a measure of all things, the liar always suspects that everybody else is lying too, and the honest man usually assumes that others are also telling the truth. And so it is often a shattering discovery for the one who is accustomed to tell the truth, that there are others for whom it's equally natural to tell a lie. For a truthful man is usually both shocked and flabbergasted when confronted by a liar. On the other hand, a natural liar is understandably amazed and bewildered to find out that some people are truly honest. Thus, to repeat again, the honest men are shocked when faced with dishonesty, while the crooks are surprised to encounter honesty. In this and other similar situations, we see the others first of all, the reflection of ourselves, and therefore tend to treat those who are different from us as a revelation. The one who lies never believes that others don't lie. A thief thinks everybody is a thief, despite their outcry. Now let me read it again. The one who lies never believes that others don't lie. A thief thinks everyone is thief, despite their outcry. 340. The lies we tell about ourselves are more revealing than the truth. For lying is an attempt to conceal what we do know about ourselves, while the truth is what we imagine we are. Nothing tells as much about what man really is as his lying about himself. It is the truthful one who are the most enigmatic when they themselves don't know who they are. 341. Culture, both in its narrow and its widest possible sense, is what men feel with the emptiness created in their lives, but the diminishing necessity to labor in order to survive. 342. The victor thinks that war is over when he wins, but not so the defeated. The winners can afford to be magnanimous and let bygone be bygone, but the loser never forgets humiliation and is always thinking about getting even. 343. Metaphors and similes derive power from their almost universal applicability based on the interconnectedness of life and nature and on the essential sameness of all men and of what happened to them. If we were all absolutely unique and our lives were not to a considerable degree similar, metaphor and similes would not exist. That is why, for example, the great biblical story of Samson and Delilah describe a typical relationship between any man and a woman. And even more, the relationship between any man and a woman may be used as a metaphor for the rest of us, including Samson and Delilah. With a very few exceptions, one human story is metaphorical, archetypical as the others. 344. While the Academy, the philosophical school founded by Plato and later devoted to study further development of Platonism, lasted for 900 years. The Lyceum, a similar school opened by Aristotle, disintegrated in less than 200 years. Anyone familiar with the writing of the both great philosophers could easily discern the reason for this glaring disparity. For Platonism has always been, for the most part, an art accessible with very little effort to practically everyone, regardless of his background. To comprehend Aristotle, on the other hand, one is required to think hard and be prepared for previous studies. And not until the medieval monk has appeared on the scene, there was a significant number of people with enough zeal and free time on their hands to do both. A philosophy or an ideology, or even a religion, which is too complicated, it demands hard work and a lot of time to be understood, could never have a wide following. 345. Most of us either do not know what we want in life, or, when we do know, cannot obtain it. 346. A person with a plain and inconspicuous face quite often looks, when wearing different clothes or being in different surroundings, like a completely different individual. But since everyone wants to be noticed, such an unfortunate people, being usually well aware of his or her handicap, resorts to all kinds of artificial devices to create individuality he or she naturally lacks. 347. Every man, no matter how wise he is, has his own limitations in understanding himself and life in general. This limitation confined him as if in a room, having, to use a modern metaphor, a glass ceiling and glass walls, which no amount of either his personal experience or of those who can absorb and learn from seems to be able to transcend. 348. Man is by nature a judgmental animal. To forgive others the sin he is also guilty of is the limit of human magnanimity. 349. Anyone who is searching for what reality truly is like a person who is looking for a water while swimming in a river. 350. People often try to justify their dishonesty with the material and financial needs. But I suspect that even if you pay a thief to be honest, he would still steal. He would still steal. It is in his blood, and money has very little to do with it. 351. Sex is the greatest democratizer of all. It is available to the rich and poor, to the young and old. It makes us all the same, if only for a while. It also serves as a public ground of communication between the people who are otherwise so different that on any other level they have very little to share. Sex is the ultimate common denominator, lowest or otherwise. It is no wonder, therefore, that the more democratic a society is, as the United States, for example, the more it is preoccupied with sex, as if subconsciously seeking in sex the bond of cohesiveness, the means to unity, the source of like-mindedness, as for example sports does. This is a social side of sex and democracy. The so-called unity of mankind, for which all the great thinker of humanity has always been striving, can probably achieve only through sex, not mind. 352. The main difference between the Hebrew and Christian God is that the first punishes the sinners, while the second forgives them. And the difference between the Jews and the Christians is that the first accept punishment, while the second expect forgiveness. 353. The monotheism of the Jews and paganism of the Greeks both had the cardinal flaws as far as ordinary men were concerned. The first, the wrath of God, who was the judge, the jury, and executioner, with no possibility of appeal, and the second, the mortality of man. Christianity, which is essentially a symbiosis of Judaism and Greek polytheism, has eliminated both of this original flaw by turning the vengeful God into forgiving one, and by promising the everlasting life to the mortal man. 354. The contradiction of the New Testament are the contradiction between the Jews and the Greeks.